changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with some instant inspiration from Chicken Soup for the Soul. It's summer, and you may be thinking of going on a vacation, but maybe you don't have anyone to go with you. The first time I went on a vacation by myself, I did find it a little awkward. But I took the easy way out, and I went to a spa where a lot of people came alone. It was actually a wonderful growth experience to go into a place where no one knew me and where I had to find the courage to have a good time. And I talk all the time about how energizing it is, how empowering to step outside our comfort zones and do something that we find new and scary. So I love it when we get to publish a story about somebody going on a vacation all alone, because I think that's scary. And I'm going to share two of those stories with you today from a book that's all about finding those ways to energize our lives and pursue our passions. It's Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive. And at the end of the podcast, I'm going to share with you how you can win a free signed copy of the book. So the first story is by Sheila Wasserman, and she takes us through all the lead up to her deciding to go on a 16,000-mile solo drive from Florida to Alaska and back. It would be a 2-month journey to find herself. Sheila says she really needed to get away from her life. She worked, plus she was caring for her elderly widowed father, and she was stressed out from worrying about her 20-something son, who still stayed out all night and slept all day. She says she was just tired of diluting herself, and she needed to figure out who Sheila was again on her own. So she was looking forward to going on this trip and being in charge of how she ran her own days, driving when she wanted, stopping when she wanted, eating when she wanted. And she had always been intrigued by the idea of traveling and living in a camper. She and her husband went to camper shows all the time to check out the new models. And they also checked out all the different states that had booths at those shows because they were trying to entice the RV crowd to visit their states. The last show they had gone to, Sheila had surprised herself. She found that she was actively planning a trip. And what intrigued her the most was Alaska, which happened to be as far away from Florida as you could get. As she walked around that trade show with her husband, she heard her mother's voice in her head. Her mother had died young, and she had stressed the urgency of following your dreams while you can. She didn't want Sheila to look back at her life and regret the opportunities that she hadn't taken advantage of. Sheila did ask her husband to go along with her, but he couldn't take that much time off work. And anyway, he said it was her dream, not his. So she picked up a brochure for Alaska, and she bought a used edition of a book called The Milepost, which she said is crucial for anyone planning a road trip along the Alaska-Canada highway. And she planned her trip. She would continue to do her work for the company that she and her husband ran, so she would bring her computer and she would handle things online, and she even brought along stamps and paperwork that she would need to mail occasionally for work. Her friends thought she was crazy, but she really wanted this. And finally, after 4 months of planning, Sheila was ready to hit the road. She would start in St. Petersburg, Florida, drive straight across to California, and then north to Alaska. And on the way back from Alaska, she would drive through Chicago and Toronto, where she would visit family. Her story was called A Road Trip to Find Me. And I put a quote at the top of it that went like this: "As you travel solo, being totally responsible for yourself, it's inevitable that you will discover just how capable you are." Bonnie Buth is another woman who discovered the joy of traveling alone. She was that woman who never said no, who worked full-time, who chaired committees, who helped out her elderly parents, who went to Bible study, and more. And one year, she says she had just hit the wall. So she decided to take a week off from work and rent a beach house. And amazingly, at the last minute, she found a property for the right price with a dog-friendly fenced yard, and it happened to be across the street from the beach. So Bonnie and her dog walked and ran on the beach. She sat under a tree and read books. She took photos. And after that, Bonnie made this trip mandatory. Every year, she rents the same house, and she has different adventures each time she goes. And she meets people, too, and makes friends with the neighbors. She says, enjoying an annual visit to the beach has allowed me to step out of life's hamster wheel and replenish my energy. Her story is called Recharge Rental because that's what it is. Her annual trip by herself to recharge herself for another year of being that woman who says yes to everything. So if the summer is passing you by and you really need to get away, but you have no one to go with you, that was just a little inspiration to go anyway, by yourself. If you want a chance to win a free signed copy of the book I mentioned, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Time to Thrive, which I can mail to you anywhere in the United States, here's what you do. Follow me on Twitter. My handle is @AmyNewmark. And then retweet any of my tweets about this podcast by the end of the day on August 1st. I'll pick 5 people at random who have retweeted, and I'll let you know if you're one of the winners, and I'll put you in touch with our webmaster who will get your address from you, and then I will sign a book and I will send it off to you. And also, I want to tell you about an exciting new feature on our website. If you go to chickensoup.com and you click on the podcast button, you'll see all the books that are featured on this week's podcast, and you can click on the Time to Thrive book cover and read more about the book. Plus, you'll see a list of tips that I wrote about what I learned from the book. Thanks for listening today to the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast. Come back for our next episode, which is going to be a sneak preview of our new book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Dog Really Did That. That book goes on sale August 8th. August 1st is Dogust, which is the universal birthday for shelter dogs, and we'll be talking about rescuing dogs and cats all month.